welcome a guest today. When last I saw this guy, we were in the beautiful setting of Planet Hollywood in Cancun at the Sands event. He made some time from his schedule to sit with us. We were in like a office cubicle somewhere, and Rick Springfield came by and said hello, and we had a nice chat. And now he's back to join us on the phone. Rick, how are you, man?
I'm not in Cancun.
Where are you, Rick?
Actually, I'm in Malibu. It's not bad, but it's certainly been brutal the last few weeks.
Well, yeah, Malibu's a beautiful place. Did you do okay with the fires there?
Yeah, we escaped it this time. We had friends who lost houses, so and it was a life-changing event. You know, it's just scarred everybody, whether they lost their house or not. It was just frightening. And I actually have friends who are leaving Malibu, like long-time residents, who are just saying they've had it.
Yeah, I know. I know some people, and unfortunately, I do know some people that lost their homes and are actually in that situation. Adrian Smith, the guitar player from Iron Maiden, I don't know if you know him, but he lost his place there, I know, and some people in the business as well. It's just horrible. Did he get close to your place, or did your whole area kind of get spared?
Yeah, we got spared this time. The one before burned all our fences and half a gazebo, and it blistered the side of our house. So we've certainly been in it, but we did escape this time, and I hope they friggin' do something about it.
Yeah, I know, and you.
Event, you know?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Rick, because I talked to some people who are in the same situation as you, where they were lucky enough to hold on to their home, but it still has a traumatic effect because you're driving through this area and you see the damage and the destruction, and it still has an impact on you as well. And it's your neighborhood, it's your area. I mean, I would imagine that's very difficult as well.
Yeah, they opened up Pacific Coast Highway for a little while a few days ago, and I took a drive, and I actually had to go into town, so I drove down there, and it truly looks like a war zone. It's insane. Buildings that you knew and have been there for 40 years they're just blackened shells or rubble. It's really, I don't know. I've never really experienced anything like it. I can imagine it looks like London during the Blitz, in the Second World War. It's just total destruction.
Do you envision yourself staying there, Rick? Or I mean, I've talked to people who are looking at or going to go elsewhere. Are you you're going to stick it out, or are you thinking of getting out of the area?
Well, I love it, really, and it's just a great place to live and to be close to LA. But I mean, if it comes close again, and certainly if we lost our house, I'd be out of here. I've looked at places. There's some cool places. There's looked at Austin. I have friends in Jersey, actually.
Oh, well, that's where I am right now.
You'll love it.
I'm in Jersey. I'm from Jersey. I'm here right now, Rick, but I can tell you this, you're not going to get the weather here right now that you're getting in Malibu. It's snow and sleet and cold. Yeah. So that would be an adjustment.
That's definitely give and take,
Yeah. This is probably the one place where the taxes would be a little cheaper than they are in California, but not much, but just a little.
Yeah, California, I think they're trying to get rid of people.
Yeah,
I'm going to stick around for now, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Hey man, I got a second home in Vegas, so if you ever need a crash place, you know where to get me. I'm serious. I had a lot of friends that were dealing with what you were dealing with in that area, and I was worried about all of them, and they're like, man, we don't know where to go. And I was like, hey man, I can open my front door remotely, drive to Vegas, you can crash there as long as you need to. So everybody needs that escape hatch every once in a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really where we live. It has been for me. It's been an escape place, coming off the road and coming back home. It's really been a kind of shoulder dropper. But when driving past all this wreckage, it isn't quite the relaxing scene it used to be.
Have you, I'm going to be out there on the 27th. I'm going to be in, there's a charity event. Actually, Sammy Hagar is doing it with me, so is Robin Zander, Kevin Cronin. It's a charity event in San Pedro that Matt Sorum put together. That's one of the many one of the many fire fundraising stuff to help people out. So if you're around, I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's called Rock for Responders. It's actually in front of the Battleship, Iowa. It's on the 27th. So if you happen to be around, I'm sure people would love to see you.
Yeah, I think Matt Sorum contacted me about that. The 27th of February?
Yeah, it's like a couple weeks away.
Yeah, I'll see if I'm around. Yeah, it's honestly doing everything you can. The insurance thing's insane. They let all the insurers pull out. And now that everybody with these real expensive homes and everything are stuck with a California Fair Plan. And, I know a lot of people go, oh, well, they got big houses. They must be rich. You don't need, but a lot of these people, their wealth is tied up in their home and they're lost now.
Yeah, no doubt. It's horrible no matter how you cut it. Well, I'm glad you did okay and hope it stays that way for you. You have a new record out. Or coming out, Big Hits. It's a compilation record, and it's Greatest Hits Volume 2, which basically covers the best tracks, or at least tracks I'm assuming you picked from some of your more recent records, right?
Yeah, I think the last albums, the last 20 years worth of albums I've done are the best things I've written and recorded. I know, I'm known for the 80s stuff, but radio play started to get a little thin around the millennium. So, but I love to write. I'm still recording. We just went in the studio, the East West, the other day, and recorded a new song that's going to be out probably in about a month. And I figured I'll just, release singles, because that's the way it's gone. Hardcore fans want an album, but I think just, if you get a song that people like, then put it out. Don't wait for an album.
Well, yeah, it seems like people have a much shorter attention span than they used to have. I talk about this all the time on my show. I mean, I grew up, in the late 70s and the 80s, and it was appointment listening to go get a record by my favorite band and listen to it front to back over and over again and read the liner notes, wait in line at the record store. I worked in a record store for years. I mean, all of that is a big part of my DNA, and I still love that process. But younger people, like my kids and stuff, I mean, it's click, 20 seconds, so I like it, I'll click to the next. I mean, there's no real investment in it. So you do have to kind of spoon feed it a little bit, as much as I hate saying it, because I still love records.
Yeah, we just bought a record player recently, and it was amazing the joy I got from albums that I've known when I was a younger guy, but just to have that whole tactile experience of pulling a record out and putting it on the turntable and hitting the needle on it and then picking up the cover and reading all about it, who played what, who wrote what. It's kids, I sound like my grandfather. Damn kids today, they don't know what they're missing.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that's why owning stuff, I tell people all the time, if you truly love a record or an artist, own it physically. I mean, it's funny, I'm an old school guy, but I'm not on the vinyl kick. I still love CDs. It's still my favorite way to get music because it's still digital. I can still rip it in my phone. It's versatile. It's compact. And I still get liner notes. Like, I'm looking at the CD right now for your record. Again, it's called Big Hits. And
hey, man,
it's
I
really
don't have
cool.
one.
Well, there's a wonderful picture of you in it, Rick, so know that. But the cover's got you in a boxing ring knocked out by a dog, basically, right? Tell us the story of that cover.
Well, it's a kind of a throwback to Working Class Dog, my first album that was successful with Jesse's Girl, and I've done everything for you on it. And the cover, the dog in the cover was my dog. His name was Ronnie. And I just started on General Hospital at that point, and it was the biggest show on TV at that point that I joined it. And I'm trying to convince my record cover my record company to put Ronnie on the cover and not me. And they're going, "You're on a national TV show and you want your dog on the cover?" And it was quite a battle, and I eventually won the battle. And the cover was eventually nominated for a Grammy and only lost out to the Stones' "Tattoo You," which was a great cover. So it was a great moment for me to have my dog. It was a rescue in the first place. To be nominated for a Grammy, and he's always been like a totem. Dogs have always been a totem animal to me. And I thought I'd hark back to it with this cover. And we looked at, obviously, Ronnie is gone. If he was still alive now, he'd be a couple of 100 years old in dog years.
Right.
But, so we looked real hard and found a good look-alike. And, I like the idea of big hits and him actually knocking me out. So, because I deserve it. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I knew that it was a takeoff on Working Class Dog, but what I didn't realize was that on that original record back in the day, that actually was your dog at the time. If you would have, with technology today, if you would have had a good photo of Ronnie, you might have been able to still use him on this cover.
Yeah, we could have done a Photoshop thing for sure, but I didn't feel like it was being respectful of him, to use him after he's gone.
Right.
So we got to look alike, just because a personal thing of mine. That's all. I love dogs; they're the greatest things ever invented, and I love them more than people. And you got to have a dog around, or you're missing a big part of life.
Going back to the music that you put together for this record, Rick. So you've got a new song on here that I know you did a video for as well. There's a totally new track called "Lose Myself," but it's a mix of a lot of different things. And tying in with something we talked about a second ago, and I have this conversation all the time with artists who have had long careers like yourself. You are known for the stuff from the 80s. You are known for Jesse's Girl and all of that. But there are a lot of artists that just lean on that catalog and just play the catalog, and I'll talk to them and be like, oh, there's really no point in making new music. Nobody plays it. Nobody buys it. When I play it live, people aren't into it. And then there's others that tell me all the time, like, hey, I'm a songwriter. I don't care what the acceptance is for it. I need to do it. I need to make new music still. You're clearly in that category because you write this stuff too. It's not like you just have writers sending you songs. These are songs you're crafting and recording. So obviously, staying contemporary, staying relevant, continuing to exercise that muscle as a writer and recording new music is important to you.
Yeah, I consider myself a writer before anything, obviously, but and I started when I was 15, and I didn't do it for money then, and I didn't do it for money when I wrote Working Class Dog, and I didn't do it for money when I wrote, the other albums that followed. It's something that I have to do, and I actually get depressed if I'm not writing, and it's such a personal thing. It's always been a personal thing. You're the only judge and jury of the song as you're writing it. I never play it for someone to say, do you like this? If I finish a song, then obviously I've liked it enough to finish it, and I'm always going to write no matter what. And I took years off in late 80s and early 90s. I was dealing with depression, and I just dropped everything and tried to take care of myself. But I was still writing, and I didn't know if I was going to come back on the road or come back into the world or whatever. But I was still writing, and I am always right. I'll always write. It's just it's a healthy thing for me to do.
You've been very open about your battles with depression. Do you find songwriting to be therapeutic in some ways?
Yeah, I feel really useful when I'm writing songs, and when if I'm doing other stuff, like I can be really occupied touring or doing a TV show or a movie or something like that, and that's satisfying too. But when I'm just at home and I'm not doing anything, it drives me crazy. Like when I go on vacation, a few times that I have, I take the guitar, I have a little travel guitar, and I sit on the beach and I write songs. I'm not the guy that can, pull up a chaise lounge and sit there for 3 hours in the sun. So it definitely helps me because it keeps me active and keeps my brain working, and it's my number one hobby.
I always ask this to artists who have had huge songs that they are super well known for, like that one giant song. And for you, obviously, that song is Jesse's Girl. As a songwriter, when you wrote that song, did it feel like, and did you know that that was going to be the song that was going to basically, be synonymous with you throughout your career? Did you know it was something special when you wrote it and recorded it, or did it just feel like another track on the album?
No, it felt like a good song. I hit a good thing with the songs on Working Class Dog. They were different than the songs I'd been writing because it had been. I always thought I was a ballad writer. Turns out I'm not. and I was I was writing ballads, and then finally got this deal with RCA, and I played them 3 different songs, and there were 3 different feels. One was real pop, and one was a rock song, and one was a ballad. And the guy said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to play rock songs. I want to play guitar, bass, pop rock." So I went away and I wrote Working Class Dog after that, and it just felt like the right thing. And Jesse's Girl felt like one of the good songs. It didn't feel like it was going to be a smash or anything like that. In fact, Keith Olsen, who produced Fleetwood Mac and Foreigner and Benatar and a bunch of top acts in the 80s, when I was unknown, he offered to do 2 tracks, record 2 tracks, produce 2 tracks for me for Working Class Dog. And I played him all my demos, and he picked Jesse's Girl. And I actually thought, why is he picking that one? There's much better songs on the demo reel than that. But he proved to be right, because he had a good ear. And so I didn't really think it was anything that special when I certainly didn't when I released it. I just thought it would be. I thought because back then it was great old radio where if a DJ liked a song, he'd damn well play it, and no one told him not to. And DJs started playing other tracks from the album, which had never happened to me before. And I was going, I don't think Jesse's Girl is necessarily the right one. But we stayed on it, and DJs started to pick it up and got great phones, as they say, which I don't even think they do anymore. And thank God for the 70s, 80s, and part of the 90s for all that.
And on this new Greatest Hits collection, the final song on it is Jesse's Girl, but a newer version of it. For people who have not heard it, what did you do differently when you did the re-record? Or is it just
Absolutely
a remix?
Nothing. Because I've heard re-records of songs I love, and I'm always disappointed when they like sing a different note for 1 second and go back to the melody. I'm hooked into what I fell in love with the first time I fell in love with a song. Like, the re-record of You Really Got Me just doesn't have the same vibe at all. And I basically I re-recorded it as a lot of artists have done to own the song, get it away from the record company. And,
gotcha.
And and when I did it, I listened to the original. I listened to it line by line and matched it as best I could. And I had to, think like a 30-year-old again and get my voice higher and all that kind of thing. And it sounds bigger because of the new technology, sonic technology. And that was pretty much the addition, was making it sound bigger and a fuller sounding record. But it does still sound like the original. And and the reason I put it on here was because when anybody buys one of my albums, they say, "Is Jesse's Girl on the album?" So I put it kind of on as a joke like that for that. Yes, it's on this album.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's more of a publishing thing, and a lot of artists do that as well. Their biggest song, they want to own a master of it in some way, and if somebody wants to use it for a TV commercial or a movie, you hope they use that version so you get the lion's share of the control in the publishing. It makes sense. I know that's something pretty common in the business.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor Swift took it to, the degree of re-records. So it's very common, and it's the first one I've done. And, people are always saying you should do your whole catalog, and I just haven't had the time. But yeah, it's definitely, honestly, it's a money play, and you should be, because it's your work. It would always amaze me that I'd spend $100,000 on a friggin' video in the '80s, and the record company would own it. I go, why is that? How is that fair? And so, record companies never really were great at what they did. There was very few that were really great at what they did, and the majority of them just would shove product down the pipeline as much as they could until the pipeline choked. That was kind of their approach. So every artist has absolutely their due to take all their music back. I mean, obviously I have the writers and publishers, but take it all back from the record company, because they're not doing anything with it.
And today, as I'm sure you probably know, Rick, with the new deals and the new people that do go get record companies, younger, newer bands, these labels now will put clauses in the contract where you can't re-record. Like for 20 years, there's like all these clauses and 360 deals where they get a piece of, there's re-record clauses. There's 360 deals where they want a piece of your live show and your merch. It's like all encompassing. That's why a lot of these acts are going to build something themselves. They'll build their own following, and they don't even want a record label because they're going to work around it because they got to give up too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a record label too, and sometimes I'll go with a subsidiary label, but they got to be real dedicated, and I would never accept any of that stuff. That's just ludicrous. And it's always been, the music business has always preyed on the young, absolutely. And I got preyed on when I was like 20, and I signed away my publishing rights because I didn't know any better. I was in Australia, and these big Americans sent over this contract, and we didn't know about lawyers. I didn't even have a lawyer look at it, and I just said, okay, this must be fair, and I signed it, and realized a couple of years later that they owned all of my publishing. So it's just the way of the world. Honestly, I can't think of a profession that doesn't do that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I want to ask you about a couple other tracks on this big hits record, and there is one that is basically, and again, for people who haven't kept up with your most recent output, this is a great way to get a little sampling of all of it. There is a track on here that you basically did with the Foo Fighters called "The Man That Never Was." Tell me about that song and how you ended up working with Dave Grohl and the guys.
Well, Dave wanted to do. He recorded "Nevermind" at this place called Sound City, and he said that his life is divided into two parts: before Nevermind and after Nevermind. And he recorded it at Sound City, and Sound City was owned by my manager, and I signed to him in like 1976, and he was on board when the record started hitting for me, and so I was a real Sound City rat, as was Stevie Nicks. We were always around there. And so when Dave wanted to do a documentary on Sound City and on basically this recording, this board, control board that he bought from Studio A that everybody had recorded on, and he put it in his studio. But he wanted to do a whole documentary based around this board. And once he got us all together, he said, well, why don't we write the song together, So everyone kind of paired off, and I got the Foo Fighters, and we wrote "The Man That Never Was." It's a great song, and they're they killed it to play it. Taylor was still in the band, and it was just a joy to play with them. And I tried playing it a couple of times live, and it never really kind of clicked with the audience. Because they never really heard it. A documentary is a hard sell. As great as it was, and with all the names attached, it was still, a documentary. And, you don't, the music, I guess music fans don't necessarily look to documentaries for new music. But there's some great songs on it, and some great collaborations. And, I put it on this record because I wanted people to.
Rick, you there?
Oh, shit.
We got you. I think you're back.
Hello?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, but we got you back. Maybe not. Rick, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah, we got you. We're
Don't know
good.
why
You're
it's
good.
doing that.
Just dropped out a second, but you're good.
Okay.
So you were talking about the Foo Fighters collaboration, which led me to wonder. You started out in a band in Australia as a kid, and for the longest time you've been a solo artist. Do you like collaboration with other people? Is there any side of you, even at this point in your life, that you'd be open to like doing something even as a side thing with a band, like on a joining a band or going out with a bunch of other guys under a band name and trying something like that? Or at this point, do you just more content working on your own?
Yeah, I always considered myself a band guy. I was kind of talked into being a solo artist by this writer in Australia who was a big fan and thought I had a lot of promise and all that. But I loved being the guitar player. I was in a 3-piece band and I was the only guitar player, and it was a great band. And one of the guys went on to be co-founder of Little River Band, and I came over here, and everybody kind of went on from the band and had success on their own. So it was a pretty, they called it actually the super group in reverse in Australia. But I loved being in the band, and it was a lot of pressure. It's always a lot of pressure being a solo artist. You're just up there on your own with your willy hanging out, and it was great, And I loved the thing with the Foo Fighters, and I've actually talked to about being in Kings of Chaos for a little while, and I've thought about putting a band together and just going out as a band. My solo commitments have been pretty solid, a lot of, and I like to spend time at home now, and I can have a studio at home so I can write and record at home. So the lure of the road is not what it used to be for me, because I get that fulfilled with the solo stuff. I have the band show. I have an incredible band. They're friggin' amazing. And I have a solo show where it's just me and like storyteller thing. And then there's an orchestral show where I do a show with an orchestra. And then there's the Two Dicks in one night that I do with Richard Marx. We've known each other since the early 80s. And we went out because if you've got a good camaraderie with someone, it really plays on stage when it's just the two of you. Kind of like the Steve Martin Short thing, where you've known each other so long and you can joke with each other and make fun of it all, and it's a very comical but wall-to-wall hits show, and so there's a lot of projects. So if something came up that was really interesting, I'd certainly jump at it. I jumped at the idea of doing the thing for Sound City. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm open to writing with other people. I've never really found. There's not a lot of people you can. I think the benefit comes when two writers get together and a third mind forms. That doesn't always happen. In fact, it's very rare that you write a song that you couldn't have written by yourself. So when you get together with someone where the magic happens, it's pretty exciting. It's happened to me a couple of times, but not all the time.
There's an orchestral speaking of orchestra, there's an orchestral version of the song World Start Turning on this record. And there's one other track I want to ask you about, and that is our mutual good friend, Sammy Hagar. You have an previously unreleased song on here that has Sammy on it called Party at the Beach Bar. And I did not know until I looked at your website before you came on today that you've actually, we know Sammy's built an empire on selling booze, and that you've actually partnered with him on the Beach Bar rum. So talk a little bit about that, and also this song Party at the Beach Bar, which I imagine kind of ties in with the rum, right?
Yeah, it's not an ad, obviously, but it's a rock song. It's about basically, getting wasted when the rockets start falling because there's nothing else you can do, and you may as well go down happy. But during COVID, Sammy called me up and said, I heard you're looking to get into the alcohol business, because I was. And he said, why don't you come on board? I've got this thing called Beach Bar Rum. and it'd be great to have you as a partner. And I tasted it, and it was the cola spice it's the new Bacardi and Coke. It's incredible, and I fell for it right away. And and I've known him again since like the early '80s because of I've done everything for you, and it was a great idea. I loved it, and I went in with him, and we've done a couple of shows together and done some promotional stuff together. And it's a tough sell. Everybody with a name has a friggin' alcohol, but it's really good. And Sammy's had it, like you said, has had a home run before, so he was certainly the right guy to get involved with. And I was just jazzed about getting it with an alcohol product out there. And I call it Party at the Beach Bar as a reference to the rum, but it's a song on it. It stands a song on its own. And I finished it, and I sent it to Sammy. He said, "Would you sing a few things on this?" And he's hilarious. He's really great. He's very funny, and it came out great. It's a pretty pedal to the metal song, and but I had to have it on the record just because most people haven't heard it. In fact, nobody has, other than when I play it live.
Yeah, it's a great one on there, and you're smart partnering with him on that. He's told me many times that he's made all his money, way more in the liquor world than he has playing rock and roll for over 50 years. I think I mentioned this to you last time I saw you. He took me to Japan with him late last year. I went for the first time, and it was funny because we were sitting in the dressing room before they played, and he had a bottle of Campari, which I guess is some sort of rum or liquor, that was sitting on the in the backstage. And we're sitting there, and he goes, "Come on, let me mix you something up." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll try something." I said to him, I go, "I'm surprised that you're drinking that. That's not your brand." And he goes, "Oh no," he goes, I genuinely like this." He goes, "For a lot of reasons." And I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Well, I do like the taste of it." He goes, "But this is the company that bought my tequila and gave me $150 million for it. So they're fine being in my dressing room." I said, "Oh man."
That's great.
If only you can have that happen with the rum, Rick, you'll be in good shape there.
That's really what everybody does with, what George Clooney did with his. They build it up and then they sell it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of having your private company. Sammy said he'd never sell this and that because his name's on it and all that. But, I think if you offer enough, I think anybody will, although he certainly doesn't need another $150 million.
But he works so hard, it's like he does. I never saw a guy work so nonstop.
He's a hard-working man, and he has the gift of the gab, which I'm in awe of, dude. He's always got something to say about everything, and he's very funny and a great guy to hang with. He's a lot of fun, and he deserves all the good stuff he's got.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got the gift of gab too, so he and I are lethal when we get together. It's just,
you two in a room would be murder.
It's happened many times. So I'll let you go here in a second, but I can't not mention the tour. I think it was announced today. I Want My 80s tour that was announced. It's yourself, John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young, John Caffrey, and the Beaver Brown Band. Looks like the dates for this run start May 29th. So speaking of the 80s and speaking of the MTV period, this really is a slam dunk in that area.
Yeah, great artists. All of them it's just, there's so many great songs on this tour. I remember I used to run a lot, and I remember running around Toluca Lake where I used to live in the early 80s, and I was playing Wang Chung all the time in my headset. So I'm really excited to have him on board on the tour. My favorite album of theirs actually was their very first one that wasn't HUANG. Still hear me?
Yeah, you dropped out there for a second, but you're back now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's raining here. I think there's got issues with the. Oh, am I out again?
Yep, I got you.
Shit. Okay, so I'm a big fan of all of them. I got very, very drunk one night with John Waite in the bar, and told him how much I love his voice, and we just became real good friends there. Paul Young is a super guy, really sweet, and a great voice. And Pino Palladino, who was his bass player on that first album of his, I brought him over. I love the bass sound so much. I brought him over from England to play on Tao, my record my album from 1985, and he's amazing. And now he's huge. I mean, no one had really heard of him. He said I was the first one to bring him over and have him play on tracks. And now I think he's still with, I don't know if he's still with The Who, but he's set in with The Who for a while. He's amazing. You know, I have ties in with all these guys.
Yeah, no doubt. I have a good friend that plays guitar on and off with John Waite live, and he was telling me that John is still incredible and his voice is still incredible, and he does some of the baby stuff, and it's really, really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing it live.
Out of the park. He really is.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Well, that tour starts. You got a couple things before that. You got a couple of these acoustic shows with Richard Marx. And then you've got the tour that we just talked about. That's kicking off in St. Augustine, and that is on May 29th. You can find all the dates, all the information at rickspringfield.com as far as the album, the dates. There's a special edition of this Big Hits record that you can get that is a coffee table book. You can get all that order information online. Rick, last thing before I let you go, do you ever get back to Australia? Do you tour there? Do you still have family there or roots there, or no? I would imagine if you go back there, you pretty much would be like a returning hero. Is that the case?
Not so much. I think because their first when I first hit it in the '80s, their first Jesse's Girl was a hit over there, but my first interviews with them, with Australia, where I had an American accent, it did not sit well with them. So they started calling me an expatriate. So I've kind of embraced that to a degree, but I still love the country very much, and I'm trying to figure out a way to go back there, because I have a couple of friends there that are really close. We used to go back every year because my mom was still living there, but when she passed away, I didn't have the heart to go again. So I think I will eventually. I have cousins there, but I have couple of real good friends, and I really miss the land. I really miss the Australian thing, and it's it's a thing I grew up with. Whatever you grow up with, wherever you're at as a kid, becomes almost like this magical place as you get older and older. All the bad memories go away, and you just remember the golden moments. And I'm full of golden moments with me in Australia.
And I know I keep saying last thing, but I just got to ask you: do you have anything cooking on the TV or film side that you're working on?
Yeah, I did a TV show recently, but it's a hush hush thing. You know, they make you sign something, you can't talk about it and all that until it comes out. So, but. Yeah, I love acting. I'm still looking to do stuff, and yeah, very very excited about to do more work. Doing stuff like Californication or the movie I did with Meryl Streep, where the writing's really good and you're working with Class A people. It's so exciting. When it's at that caliber, I'm as fulfilled as when I am. Doing a show on the road or writing something and recording in the studio. It's really fulfilling.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate the time. It's good to talk to you again. Everybody just go to rickspringfield.com. You'll find out about the tour. You'll find out how to order the record and keep up with all the dates and everything going on. And hope everything stays cool for you there in Malibu, Rick. And I hope to see you somewhere down the line soon. If you make it out, we'll see you on the 27th, maybe, if you come out to that gig. Otherwise, hope to see you somewhere down the line. I'm sure I will. Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate talking to you. Yep, you too, man. Take care. Bye-bye. There he goes, everybody. Rick Springfield. Went a little longer there than I thought, but he's great to talk to, man. The guy's got a tremendous amount of history, and both acting and obviously music. And, I always have a lot of respect for those guys that could do anything, but they still kind of fall back on what they really love, which is music and rock music. And, in his case, more pop-leaning rock music, but still certainly rock music. But, you think about it, a guy like Rick Springfield that had the career he had in acting, soap operas, movies, TV, the guy's 75, he still looks incredible, takes incredible care of himself. He looks unbelievable. He could have went exclusively down that road, but he loves playing and touring and writing and doing music and playing guitar, that he still stays in that end of it. Another person that comes to mind that kind of falls in that category that's much younger is Taylor Momsen. Taylor Momsen as a kid had a very successful acting career, but she's kind of almost completely abandoned that, chasing her dreams with The Pretty Reckless and doing great. I mean, to me, that's always a really, really incredible thing. I don't know if I'd have the guts to do that, because both things are so difficult to break into and have success in, acting and music. I mean, I don't know what's harder. I would think they're both equally pretty tough. That's a really good question now that I'm pondering it in my head, and I just threw it out there. I don't know if you're aspiring to be a successful actor or a successful musician. I don't know what is the more difficult one to accomplish now. I would have said, like 20 years ago, I would have. This has been a great question for Rick. Unfortunately, he hung up. But I would have said 20 years ago that acting was harder. But now, I don't know, because music is so saturated. You don't need record companies. I mean, again, that's the old story we've talked about before, the pro and the con, right? When you're looking at music, the pro is, I don't need a label. I don't need anything. I can put music out. But that's also a huge negative, because all the gates are down and because it's free flowing. You got 100 times more of it in the pipeline, making it 100 times harder to be noticed and to stand out from the pack. And now so much is about algorithms and streaming numbers and social media and all of that, that to acquire those numbers is way harder, because literally you're competing literally against anybody that wakes up one day and decides they want to upload something. Didn't used to be like that. I mean, I remind people all the time of this, and I think it's a really important thing to remember. It used to be you could not release music into the world without a record company. You had no way of doing it. There was no internet. You had to have a label that would produce vinyl, tape, CD, whatever for you. And that was a huge accomplishment and hurdle when you got that deal. And those labels got rid of 90% of stuff coming down the pipeline because they were the gatekeepers, for better or worse. All that's gone now. Somebody hands you a song or sends you a link to a song, it's like, yeah, you're one of 55 that did that today alone. It used to be you made a music video. It's like, holy shit, you made a video. Now you got people pumping out videos every day, iPhone, whatever they're using. So that's all changed. And then when you look at the acting world, I mean, I would still think some of this old rules still apply. You obviously still need to get an agent. You still need to be good. You need to audition. You need to get popular. You need to look a certain way, depending upon what kind of actor you want to be. But the one thing you could say about acting is that so the same thing has happened with acting as the music industry, where you can now put videos out. You can make shows extraordinarily cheap. You can distribute them through social media platforms or YouTube. So it's a little bit, you got a little bit of a glut there too. But the one thing that I think would favor people wanting to act is there's probably more content being produced than ever, because of all these streaming platforms now needing to generate and produce shows and content. So maybe back in the day, if you're trying to be an actor, you maybe had 3 film studios you had a shot at for movies, and if you wanted to be on TV, you had 3 networks. Now you probably got countless studios and countless streaming platforms and networks and cable TV and all that. So I don't know. kind of, making the case each way for myself here as to what would be easier. I don't know. I still think they're both extremely difficult. But then you got somebody who had success doing both, like Rick, or, Taylor, although Taylor's moved away. Taylor, every time I talk to Taylor, I ask her about if she wants to go back to it. And she's, maybe if the right opportunity, but she doesn't really seem, she seems completely immersed in doing rock music. And Pretty Reckless just got added to all the AC/DC shows again as the opening act. So she's, thrilled about that. We haven't had her on a little bit, probably due to visit with her again sometime in the near future. Anyway, great stuff from Rick Springfield. Appreciate the time. And always good catching up with him for a bit. Relatively newer friend of the show. I've had him on like 3-4 times in the last few years, and always good to hear from him and hear what he's got going on. Still at 75 years old, still out there, still hitting it hard.